Kid, and welcome to this extra magical Kid Time story. Maleficent, what are you doing? Did you think that you could do a story that is famous only because I'm involved in it and not include me? Well, Maleficent, you really don't normally ever like to be part of Kid Time StoryTime nonsense. Well, actually, that part is true. But I mean, it's nonsense that you think that I wouldn't come over here and let everyone know, you specifically, yes, you, yes, I am making direct eye contact with you. Don't you know that this would be nothing but a boring old story about a girl, la 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 la, prince, la 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 la, marriage, babies, blah. Shh, if it wasn't for me, I'm the one that made Sleeping Beauty a hit. Everyone knows it, all by myself. Well, maybe Walt Disney's picture might have had a little nonsense. Nonsense. It's all about me. And in fact, this book should have been named Maleficent, Who Made Sleeping Beauty, someone you actually have ever heard of. Well, speaking of Sleeping Beauty, do you mind if I go ahead and read the book? Fine. You can read it. Only because I'm in it. And also, I reserve the right to interrupt you as much as I want. Okay, fair enough. Sleeping Beauty. Ooh, this book belongs to me and you and all the world because this is a classic and it is so beautifully drawn. You're gonna love it. Away we go. Once upon a time. Do they all have to start that way? You've already interrupted? Well, I mean, couldn't they sometimes start a different way? Like, Maleficent was combing her beautiful horns. Something like that. Just think about that. Okay, all right, I'm gonna start again. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen and a Maleficent who had almost everything they could possibly wish for. But neither was content, for there was one thing missing. Me. They both wanted a child. One day, the queen saw a rosebud floating in the fountain, bloop, 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 and it smelled so sweet, she put her hand in to pull it out. And just then, a bright green frog leaped out of the water and spoke to her. Oh man, I wish I had speaking frogs. I have speaking frogs. Oh, lucky you. Don't be afraid, he said. I have good news for you. Before long, you will have a baby girl. And whoop, he jumped right back into the water with a tiny splash. The queen, well, she was overjoyed and ran straight inside this gorgeous castle to tell the king what had happened. And I think by the pictures, these look like cherry blossoms that come out in the spring. So I'm wondering if this is springtime. That following spring, just as the frog had promised, ribbit, a beautiful little girl was born. And the palace bustled with joy. The king and queen were so delighted that they decided to celebrate with a magnificent party. Did you say Maleficent? No, I said magnificent. Oh, so close. Well, everyone in the kingdom will be invited, said the king, beaming with pride. Everyone. In those days, it was the custom when a royal baby was born to send out invitations to all the fairies in the realm. From the tiniest to the most powerful, messengers were sent out all over the land. But one fairy, one guess, one fairy who had not been seen for more than 50 years was forgotten. Forgotten my foot. And she was the oldest and most powerful of all. Her name was Malevola. That's right. I am so evil that I have more than one name. Some people might call it an alias. So, they don't want me at the party, she snarled. Well, let's see if they like my gift. That's right. I will be speaking my own lines because you can't do it justice, storyteller. All right, Maleficent, that's fine if you want to read your part. That's lovely. I'm sure the kids will enjoy it tremendously. On the day of the party, the king and the queen, aren't they lovely? They welcome the fairies. They're all so cute and beautiful. Look, there's a pink one and a yellow one and a blue one and a purple one, another a light pink one and a different shade of blue. And there's a pale green one and there's another little pink one. Aren't they cute? Oh my goodness. I'm going to have a party, invite the fairies over. And I won't forget anybody. Anyway, on the day of the party, the king and the queen welcomed the fairies as they arrived and led them all into this beautiful hall, just festooned with flowers. The princess's name is Rosebud, announced the king as the fairies came forward to give their magical gifts. Then she will be as beautiful as a rose, said the first fairy.
Everyone will love her,
said another.
She will be very clever,
promised a third.
kind, graceful, lucky in love.
As they went on and on, the queen began to lose count of the wonderful gifts being showered upon little Rosebud, sleeping sweetly in her arms. What a good baby, not waking up during all that party time. All of a sudden, da da da, the air grew freezing cold, and at the entrance to the hall was Maleficent, hidden in shadow. You didn't ask me to the party, but I've come anyway, she cried, and here is my gift. Beautiful and clever she may be, but when she is 16, the princess will prick her finger on a spindle and die. The other fairies, with horror, and the queen held her baby, her precious baby, close, but Maleficent had already disappeared into the night. Oh no, did you see that? Oh, stop her! Someone make it stop! Oh, the humanity! Just then, beep, 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 a tiny fairy with a wand that shone like pink fire flew out of the shadows and hovered above the little princess. I haven't given my gift, she said. The queen lifted her baby up to the fairy. When you prick your finger, you shall not die, Rosebud, said the fairy. You will fall into a deep sleep until 100 years have passed, when a prince will wake you. The king and the queen wept as the fairy said goodbye. What a terrible future for their little princess. Look at those tears coming out of their eyes, tiny little tears, and baby Rosebud still peacefully asleep in their arms, none the wiser about what has just transpired and set her fate. The king was determined to beat the evil spell, so the very next day he ordered that every spindle in his kingdom be burned on a huge fire. Nice try, king. The little fairy, who had stayed behind to keep watch over the princess, shook her head and whispered, What's done cannot so easily be undone. Years passed, and the king and queen began to believe that they had outwitted Maleficent. Rosebud grew as beautiful and clever and kind as the fairies had promised. She was graceful as a deer, hey dear, and so loving that no one ever wished her a moment's harm. But the little fairy, there she is, waited and watched over her with an anxious heart. I'd be anxious too if you know who was around all the time. Well, actually, she kind of is around all the time. She does live here. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Rosebud woke up feeling strangely restless. Wow, I'm getting choked up. I think it's Maleficent hanging around here too long. I may have put something in the air. Never mind that. It was just to consider it a perfume. Yes, perfume. Oh, that's a weird perfume, Maleficent. Anyway, on the morning of her 16th birthday, Rosebud woke up feeling, strangely restless. She wandered from room to room and soon found herself in a part of the palace she had never seen before. Ooh, how exciting! A brand new wing she'd never discovered in 16 years. Excitedly, she climbed faster and faster up the steps of an old tower until she reached a door at the top. It opened at the slightest touch. And there, in front of her, was a little old woman working at a spinning wheel. Now, Rosebud had never seen a spindle before because, her dad had gotten rid of all of them. And it seemed like magic. Magic! What are you doing? She asked. Can I try?
If you like,
smiled the old woman, taking Rosebud's hand. But as soon as Rosebud touched the spindle, the sharp needle prickled her finger and she fell at once to the ground in a deep sleep. See? You can't escape from my spell, hissed the old lady, for she was Maleficent in disguise. And then triumphantly, she slipped away. Ah, the prophecy comes true. Luckily, the little fairy was already searching for the princess. She warned the king and queen, and they hurried to the tower. There, oh, alas, alas, they found Rosebud fast asleep by the spinning wheel. All day they wept and called her name, gently touching her face and rubbing her hands, but it was no use. Rosebud remained asleep, smiling prettily as though she was dreaming, even though for her parents, this is a total nightmare. At last, with a heavy heart, the king carried Rosebud to her room and laid her on her bed. The end. No, this is not the end. The end. The story's over. Thank you very much for coming and enjoying my story. It's not going to be over yet, Maleficent. Oh. All right, let's switch the page. Oh, she gets so cranky about the endings to these stories. Then it was time for the little fairy to carry out what she had been planning ever since Maleficent cast her evil spell. Gently, she touched the king and queen, who yawned and soon sank quietly into a deep sleep. Shh. Shh. And then one by one, the fairy touched the cooks, the courtiers, the pages and maids, until the whole palace was quiet, except for the sound of gentle breathing. Even the dogs and the cats were sleeping, the mice in the corn and the doves in the hayloft. Wow, this guy was mid-paint job and he just, well, his paintbrush is going to dry out. He's going to be unhappy in 100 years. Well, outside in the gardens, the wild roses began quickly to grow, and huge briars covered the walls of the palace. Days passed, weeks, months, and then years. Still, the palace slept deep in enchantment, encircled by a forest of wild roses. Now, in the outside world, a legend grew of a princess cursed by a wicked fairy. Everyone agreed that there were great treasures to be found in her palace, but that it was unlikely to go anywhere near it. Some, braver than the rest, tried to hack through the briars, but at every stroke of their swords, the thorns grew back thicker, and they gave up, scratched and bleeding, and slunk back home. It's almost as if the briars are protecting them from anyone who would come to try to harm them or rob from them while they're asleep, don't you think? Well, almost 100 years had passed when a young prince went out riding in the forest. And by the way, I look as good as ever. Yes, you always do look incredibly evil and fantastic. Prince Florizel soon found himself separated from his friends with no idea of where he was. Now, with growing excitement, he saw that he must be near the enchanted palace of the legend. Through the trees was a vast wall of wild roses, and their scent flowed around him like honey, drawing him closer. He jumped from his sword and jumped from his horse and raised his sword, ready to fight his way through. But to Florizel's amazement, the thorns melted away, and the roses parted in front of him. It's almost as if they've been expecting him. Soon, the huge stone walls of the palace loomed above him, overgrown with brambles and moss. Florizel saw a watchman on guard. Yep, he's completely asleep there. A watchman on guard, and held his breath until he heard snoring. The man was fast asleep. Florizel crept forward past the guards and the guard chambers and the horses who were sleeping as they stood, and cooks sleeping in the middle of stirring their pans, and children curled up, their toys still clutched in their hands, sound asleep. As if in a dream, Florizel climbed the cobwebby stairs until he came to a door. and pushed it open. So okay, story over. It's all over now. Let's go. Let's go have some. Oh yes, some delicious witch stew. I just got some fresh frog legs in there, and I got a little extra cobweb sprinkling. It's fantastic. You're gonna love it. Let's go. Maleficent. What? I'm going to keep reading. You know, she can't call all the shots around here. Look at who he's found. Look at that. That's what Maleficent didn't want us to see. Doesn't she look beautiful? Not a day over 16, even though technically she is now 116. And look, she is cobwebbed in. But that dress, look at that beautiful dress. And it actually matches the prince, purple and purple, which is a regal color after all. And look at that gorgeously sparkling candelabra. And the briar roses are all over the place. Look at that. In other stories, her name is Briar Rose, or Rosebud. It's variations of it, like you heard Malevola and Maleficent. The most beautiful princess he had ever seen lay on the bed asleep. Florizel leaned forward and kissed her hand, and her eyes fluttered and opened. "My prince," she said sweetly, "I have been dreaming about you. I knew you would come." And before they knew it, the prince and Rosebud were talking and laughing as if they had known each other their entire lives. Oh, I feel like the fairy, that fairy, she knew what she was doing. She planned this all along, that little fairy princess, the cute one. Meanwhile, the palace, everyone else, had also woken, and everyone was getting back to, well, whatever they had been doing when they went to sleep. They probably didn't realize that 100 years had just passed. Boy, are they in for a shock when they see cell phones. Anyway, the dogs were chasing the cats, meow. The sparrows were pecking at crumbs, chip, 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 chip. The stable boy was leading out the horses, and the cooks were getting the kitchens ready for supper. The king and the queen soon discovered that the spell on their daughter had been broken, and they wept tears of joy. Not long after, it was announced that Prince Florizel and Princess Rosebud were to be married. Ugh. Everyone in the kingdom was invited to their magnificent wedding in the palace rose garden, which, what? How beautiful is this? I told you this was going to be an exquisitely drawn book. Everyone in the kingdom was invited to their magnificent wedding in the palace rose garden. Rosebud wore an exquisite silk wedding dress by Vera Wang. Kidding, she's not born yet. As she walked by, fairies showered her with fragrant petals. Never had she looked more beautiful than when she looked into the eyes of her handsome prince, the one she knew was coming all along. And smiling, each said, "I do." It was the happiest day of their lives, and the celebrations lasted well into the night. Look at that. And her friend Bambi came, and all the fairy godmothers showed up, and he looks very handsome in his purple. Blah, blah, blah. Is the story over yet? Not yet. One more page. Ugh. The princess, who became known as Sleeping Beauty, blah, blah, blah. Prince to live happily ever after, forever grateful for the magic of the little fairies, blah, blah, blah. I'll see you at the fairy convention, little pink fairy. There's a convention? Yes. I rarely go, but I like to hang around on the outside and make fun of everyone and say mean things and, generally be Maleficentish. Okay, all right. Well, you really did make the story so much more interesting, right? Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so you have a prince, you have a princess, they get married, they become king and queen, they have babies, repeat, rinse, repeat, blah, blah, blah. What makes these stories interesting? What? What was that? I know you can see me, I know you can hear me. Me, I'm the one who makes these stories interesting. So, I'm glad, sort of, glad in a way that you read Sleeping Beauty. Oh, you are Maleficent? Well, only because, first of all, it gave the children the opportunity to get a better look at me and my handiwork and see what a fascinating character study I am. And also that my name is also Malevola, depending on which story, which country, because, I am worldwide famous. Yes, you are famous. I do agree. Well, can we wrap this one up? All right. Just... I highly recommend this one because I like the way I look. I think I look very youthful in it. What else? Sarah Gibb, yes, I suppose you did a fine job on everyone else. But the more important part here is that I looked amazing. And just for that alone, you should probably buy 7 copies. Oh, one for all of their friends? Well, I mean, if you have friends, if not, just read all 7 and preferably leave them all open to the page that shows me and have one in every room, like the living room and the grand foyer, the ballroom, the dining room, the piano room, the dungeon, of course. Ooh, that gives me an idea. I will wallpaper my dungeon with pages from this book. Oh, I'm going to Amazon to order. Oh, I didn't even know witches used Amazon. Well, kid, I hope you enjoyed Sleeping Beauty as much as that one over there. And remember, always stay beautiful. Get your beauty rest and stay away from spindles. I think that's the moral of the story. See you next time on KidTime StoryTime.